Hello and welcome to episode 2 of Filling in the Gaps. I am Justin,
I'm Sam.
and today we are going to be discussing a game that we both enjoyed called the Talos Principle. Essentially, this game for me was recommended by a YouTube channel I watch called Extra Credits, in which they talked about if you really like Portal and you need something to scratch that itch, this is the game to play. It is a puzzle game with a bit of a story. I'm going to say a bit. I think you and I may disagree a bit on that one, but that is essentially what the game is. It's not Portal, but it has some kind of similar mechanic and puzzle style. Let's talk about the story first a bit.
Okay.
Yeah, because I honestly feel like that's the thing to talk about the least, because I think there's not, they give the illusion of a bigger story, but I don't feel like the story is really there. But the story essentially of the Talos Principle is you are I guess, android. Would that be the correct?
Yeah, I mean a consciousness inside a robot that's set free to try and
Solve some puzzles?
solve some puzzles to prove your worth. But I guess it's more than that. It's all about, for me anyway, it wasn't just the puzzle solving. In fact, that might have just been secondary to the story. We're playing it for the puzzles, but the android is playing it not for the puzzles really, but for the interaction with the terminal. Learning about the story, it was about his choices of how he chose to respond to each thing, and he was trying to prove his humanity. So that was the story part of it, I think. But for us, we're just there to enjoy the puzzles, really. Yeah.
Right. Spoilers. There's going to be nothing but spoilers. This is a puzzle game right off the bat. If you've not played it, we both recommend it.
Play it.
All right, so you've been warned. Spoilers.
Spoilers.
Ahead. So we have a story where essentially you wake up in the world and you don't know what you are. And you can kind of look down and see your hands and realize they're not human hands. And there's a voice that talks to you. So, I'm trying to remember because we've just recently both played the DLC Road to Gehenna. So is that voice Elohim?
Yep.
Okay. So the voice kind of explains to you what you're there for, to prove that you are quote unquote human, though that has some implications as well. And then throughout the game, the only voice you ever hear is Elohim, and the rest of the communication and story is all done through computer terminals that you encounter along the way.
And the tapes from the woman, the doctor.
Oh yeah, I forgot about those.
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you just find those at random, right?
Those are just computer programs that are like glitchy kind of things that you walk into, and then it activates them, and then that gives you the actual doctor's voice, and she's the one that really pushes a lot of the story forward. Because, well, again, yeah, spoilers, but the world is ending pretty much. That's the whole point of the game, isn't it?
Well, but the world has ended.
Well, the world
for humans.
For humans, yeah. And so they've been struck by some kind of virus. They're trying to upload their consciousness into robots and live on kind of eternally, like downloading themselves onto the internet, kind of, I guess.
See, and that's the part where I got confused. I'm not sure if they're downloading themselves, but they're trying to create a humanity, someone that was quote unquote human in thinking and rationale, so that at least our way of thinking could continue on.
The high goal of the research of that woman was to save their own minds, but I think that failed. Again, this is where the story is quite hard for me to follow as well.
Yeah.
It's like, because by the end of it, you're like, well, who even am I? Am I one of those researchers? Because you wake up, it's the research lab where you wake up in the end as a robot when you're freed. But yeah, I was kind of confused. Was it the consciousness of the people uploaded? But I think they make it quite clear in the game that they failed at that. And so, like what you've said is,
Oh, so this was Plan B.
Plan B is, okay, if we can't get ourselves in there, then let's just try and make something that's similar or like that reflects humanity. Yeah.
Okay. It also, the game tends to give us a lot of philosophical ideas as well, and some stories to reflect their thinking, which you really liked. Sometimes I felt it was just muddying the waters and confusing me a bit more as far as the story that we already were debating as to what was actually going on.
Yeah.
But you really enjoyed that, so
I liked, especially in the DLC, which we'll talk about later. Yeah, I felt like the terminal interaction was kind of fun. It's also maybe a reason for a second playthrough because I know that there are ways that you can break the system and you can like trick Elohim at one point, and I didn't figure out how to do that. I didn't manage to do that, but there's an achievement where you basically crush him with his own logic. I never got that.
I didn't do that either.
Yeah.
That's kind of the sad thing. We were playing at the same time and oftentimes watching each other play through Steam, but when it came to the terminal stuff, we often were doing that alone and making the same choices.
Yeah.
And we were thinking way too similarly.
But on the DLC, we did do the opposite, didn't we?
We learned.
You said, I did this, you try this, and it was kind of...
Let's see if we get something different.
Yeah.
One thing for me about the story, I do like stories, especially in games. It makes sense to wake up and you don't know what's going on so that you can be learning along with your character. This is one of those ideal times where it makes sense that that's happening. One of the things that I didn't like, though, in that beginning part was I felt completely lost. And I didn't know where I was supposed to go. And even right from the beginning, you're given choices of where to go. This is one... It's going to be very hard for me to talk about this game without talking about Portal. Because I feel like this is good. And I would probably think, oh, this is one of the most amazing games ever if Portal and Portal 2 did not exist. Just the idea in Portal where they took you specifically through a very linear... Most of the game is very linear. But I think for that game in particular, that works. That allows them to take you to level up your knowledge in a way that makes sense and kind of scaffolds you in your knowledge throughout. Whereas sometimes in this one, there was so much freedom, you could easily choose levels that did things you hadn't been taught yet.
Yeah, I think so. I would agree with that. I think we both love Portal. That's one thing we definitely agree on. It's one of my favorite puzzle games too. And Portal is good in the sense that it does give you the baby steps that you need. And then by the time it's taught you everything that you need to know, then the puzzles go crazy, and it's like, well, now you figure it out. But you know everything. Whereas in Talos, there's definitely some things like, and this is what I liked about Talos as well, because I do like, as long as the leap of logic isn't too far, I do like it when I say to myself, like, I wonder if I could do this, and then I try it, and then it works, and it's like, wow, oh, I can do that. It's like, okay, this opens up a whole new thing, and it's kind of rewarding, more rewarding than Portal in that sense, because it's like you're making that judgment call and making that kind of logical assumption about what you can and can't do.
I think that's kind of the joy of the exploration that Portal didn't have because it was so linear. This game definitely has exploration, which leads into especially the stars, which we'll have to talk about later. But the one last thing I wanted to talk about in the story is just that, as we both said, that we were a bit confused about what was going on. We weren't really sure what was going on. But that includes even into the ending. We were both a bit confused as to exactly what was going on and exactly what that would mean. And maybe that's for the best. I don't know.
It could be, or maybe I just didn't understand the story. But I mean, the overall story is there's two sides, and it's the Garden of the Garden of Good and Evil, I guess, isn't it? It's that you've got the shepherd on one point, and then you've got Ezekiel on the other. What's the other guy's name? But yeah, the shepherd wants you to escape, and the other robot wants you to stay, and eventually you got to make that choice.
Because the thing was, you are not the only consciousness here, and if we leave, we might destroy everything and everyone that is there. So throughout the game, you're kind of confused. Purposely, I think they want you to be a bit confused as to whether you're doing the right thing or not. But I think that the end level, with the way that happened, the absolute end level at the top of the tower, shows that we don't have a choice. The only choice you have is to stop playing the game.
Well, you have the choice to walk through the doors in the church, and that ends the game also. Yeah,
that is true.
That's if you take Elohim's offer, then that's it, game over. You get an ending, and it's like, oh, you could actually attempt the tower and do that. I think, could you?
Yeah, because you just need to.
You just need the
solve every.
Yeah, you don't. It's not the. That's not the stars. Yeah, you need the stars to climb the tower. That's right. So you could actually play the whole game obeying Elohim, which is kind of cool in a sense, like just being the good robot, going through the doors, and then you could think, oh, I'm finished, but actually there's like double the game left to play.
Honestly, if I hadn't been playing with you at the same time, the difficulty of the stars,
Yeah.
I would have taken that ending and just
Well, I
probably
mean,
said that was good.
the thing is with the stars, even for me, and I do like exploring, and because I didn't even know what the stars were. I saw them on my screen, but like the little icon, I was like, what even are these things? I can't find them. And it wasn't until we'd completed the whole first world that I found a star in the next level. It was the one I sent you the picture of with the when you drain the water and there's like the thing
Yeah,
going
but
down.
you found that. That's one thing that I meant to bring up, but I didn't. Part of the story is also enhanced a bit by barcodes that when you look at, you can see.
Yeah, the QR codes. Yeah.
Oh yeah, sorry, QR codes.
QR codes.
So you see those, and people leave messages, and you can leave messages. Though I saw one that you left, but we could never recreate that again. So that was kind of nice because that was these other consciousnesses kind of leaving little notes,
Yeah.
which did add a bit to the story. But that was the one that you looked up the QR. You actually used your phone, right, to read the QR code.
Yeah, because it was the only one that was different. Because all the other ones, when your robot looks at the QR codes, it comes up in English. You're like bloop, and then it tells you the translation. But this one, you look at it, but nothing happens. So I was like, okay, what if this is a real QR code and I have to do it manually? Because again, from last episode, we had all these amazing investigation skills from Black Watchman. So I was still kind of in Black Watchman mode. So I decided to look outside the game for the answer, and sure enough, there was the answer. And yeah, it's kind of interesting. But again, if you've never played Black Watchman or one of those types of puzzle games, you might be looking for something that's self-contained.
Yes, but at the time you were really irritated because that was something that was not within the game.
Yeah, yeah. Because everything else, I had this thing where I remember I was always like, "This game is flawless.
Yes.
This game is flawless. This is the beauty of it. It's the golden circle."
There were times where I was convinced that there was a glitch because I couldn't do something, and no, it's flawless, it's perfect.
And I still believe that it is. It's not flawless in the DLC, which is something I want to talk about later when we talk about that. But yeah, as far as the Talos Principle goes, everything is there for a reason, and it's beautiful.
Well, let's talk about the mechanics. So, as far as mechanics, I started writing it down, and the list got longer and longer. Essentially, you were dealing with, I think, 4 enemies. I said there's obviously the mines that blow you up.
Yep.
Kind of floating mines that blow you up. The turrets, which will shoot you. These are the obvious enemies. But there's also electric mines, which don't really kill you, but they often get in your way. And there's purple gates, which will stop you from taking anything to certain areas where you desperately need them. And then as far as tools, that's where I went, oh, there's actually quite a lot of tools in this game. So there's the connectors where you're connecting essentially the blue light beams and red light beams.
Yep.
You've got jammers, which can take down the blue walls and stop mines and stop guns and
Jam things,
generally. They're essentially one of my favorite parts of the game when I found that and realized how much it could do. There's a time recorder, which you earn the ability for later.
Yep.
There's a carrying plate, which essentially is just part of the time recorder because I don't think we ever used it at a time.
You can't use it without, yeah.
There's the power source for the lights. There's the cube, though they, of course, call it the tetrahedron or something.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
It's the cube.
Not the companion cube.
We'll be continually calling it the cube because I can never remember that word exactly. There are the fans and the fan blades and eventually an axe.
Yes, the axe, yeah.
So
God,
these
the axe. The tower part, remember that?
Yeah. But there's also just some really frustrating things with the axe because sometimes you drop it and forget where you left it. Well, at least I did.
Yeah.
And then have to go find it again.
Or reset everything.
Reset everything.
Yeah.
That is one thing. So some of the levels you might get stuck.
Yep.
Which that's one thing about this game and the exploration is that if you get really stuck and frustrated, you can move on and try a different one and then come back again later. Mm-hmm. That is both for me good and bad because then I'm much more likely to get frustrated easily and move on to something else. Whereas if I have no choice, I'm going to stick with that one longer. So it's kind of hit or miss for me, but I do like that option sometimes. And the fact that they labeled sections with signs so that you would know which ones you haven't done yet and which one you have, that made it much easier to keep going. I would have been really struggling if they hadn't done that.
Yeah, the little signs that tell you the stars that you found, the sigils that you need to collect. Yeah, that was a lifesaver for sure.
One of the most important things that you have to do, because you have to do this very early on, is use the connectors with the light sources. And it works really well. It has a tremendous range, as you find in the game. Is virtually unlimited. But I found that a lot of times the levels they had us doing, especially later on in the game, were very fiddly. Like, you had to have the connectors in exactly the right spot. And sometimes I would have the right solution, but just be off by a tiny fraction. And I would watch you do your level and go, oh, you mean I have it right, it's just a tiny bit off. And that bothered me a lot.
Yeah, I think, well, I watched some, in preparation for this, I watched some walkthroughs of some of the levels that I didn't like, that I thought were too hard. And what they've got is completely different from what I've got and completely different from what you've got. And we're definitely talking about the crater later on. But that was one of them. I solved it differently, and then I was helping you solve it, and you saw something that I completely missed and was like, oh yeah, that's actually a lot easier than what I had planned, because you circumvented a whole section of what I did. Like, you just completely skipped 3 or 4 steps of mine with yours, and it took you straight to the answer. I was like, oh man, I'm so dumb. You actually had a much better solution. And then on the walkthroughs, they had another solution. So it's like, yeah, maybe we were both thinking the same, because maybe that's the most obvious for some of those puzzles. And it's like, yeah, just a fraction of a centimeter off to get past that wall. But if you watch another walkthrough, we're looking at it the completely wrong way, and it's actually...
There's a much easier
solution.
I'm not surprised. But I think that is one of the strengths of the game, is that there are multiple solutions to... I'm not really sure what else to talk about, the other tools, the other mechanics. I mean, they kind of work as they do. I think maybe you found the time recorder to be the most frustrating.
I didn't. I mean, I liked it as a tool, but it was the hardest for me to use, because I just couldn't wrap my head around it a lot of times. Because you have to think about, okay, we should explain this timer. So you hit a button on the computer. It creates a digital copy of yourself.
So everything you do now, when you hit play, there's a ghost that will be doing essentially the same thing.
And so your character can then work with that ghost as a team to get to your goal. But for me, that was just mind melting at some points, because some of those levels were hard with those things.
So it's essentially you working with your past self to get a goal done. I've seen this mechanic before, and I think that might be part of the reason why I've...
Because you were really good at those. Yeah.
There's a series on the PlayStation called Ratchet and Clank. Like the PS3 games that they had for that, they had that mechanic. They had a very similar mechanic where you had to say, there are 2 buttons that need to be pushed. So you need to create a past self to step on the button, and then you step on the button, and then the door opens. So very similar to what we were doing here, just this was a bit more complicated and a bit more involved, because there are a lot more things that you can play around with, because there are so many different tools that work different ways and do different things. So you can use the jammer to open a purple gate sometimes, but you could also use the connectors once you've opened it up, and then take the jammer to use it somewhere else.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that within the puzzle you're using, they basically have, my assumption is that they made a level, they designed a level, and then thought, okay, that's the easy way. What can we take away to make it more challenging?
Yeah.
And what can we take away to make it more challenging? Until they came down to the bare minimum of what you would absolutely need to get through a level.
It's just mean. But that's the other thing as well that's actually genius about the ghost levels is you get ghosts of every single object that's in that room as well. So you've got you've got a jammer and a ghost jammer, a connector, a ghost connector. And some of those levels, there was one level that had maybe 2 fans, 2 connectors, 2 jammers, so that's, now you've got 12 items that you can possibly use. It's just, it's very sore on my head.
Well, the problem with those levels is that, yes, you have all those things, but you only have them while your playback is going. So if you mess up, you have to reset. And that doesn't just reset that room, it resets the whole
World
section, like the C world, right? Or B world. So that can be very, very frustrating when you get trapped somewhere and you go, oh, I made one tiny mistake and now I need to start over. The other part of this was recording. Sometimes I would be recording and put myself on a button so I knew the button was there. And just sitting there for 2 minutes waiting.
2 minutes is a long time.
When you're just sitting there doing nothing. And it's the type of thing where if we're both online at the same time, I'd want to send you a message, but that stops the timer. Like, oh, well, I could use this 2 minutes to send you a message. Oh, no, that doesn't actually work.
Yeah, no, that's a shame.
But I enjoyed that a lot. It was taking a mechanic I'd seen before, but taking it to another level, and that worked well. I actually would have liked to have seen more of it. I don't think you would have, but I would have liked to have seen more of it because I thought that it worked really well. One problem I had was I felt that a lot of times the mechanics weren't taught to us, basically full stop. They didn't really teach us how to use these things. Again, we mentioned already that you can do multiple methods of solving a puzzle. And there was one, I forget what it's called, but there's an electric mine and there's a bunch of turrets ready to shoot you. And it was driving you crazy.
Oh, it was called like Death Valley or something like that, yeah.
For me, this was simple because I picked up the cube. I didn't know what to do. I just happened to be near the electric mine and the option to put it on top happened. So for me, this was incredibly easy. And I went, how can it be so difficult for you? But then you found a totally different solution where you somehow stole something and like put it up and carried it over. Yeah. But the problem was then there are other levels where there is no other solution other than to know that you can put stuff on top of the electric mine. And sometimes not being taught those things, I felt was a real weakness to the game.
The putting stuff on top was that's quite a jump. But again, though, if you're on a platform already and there's a mine below you, it's like it highlights on top of it that you can place the box there. So even if you're just standing there going, what am I supposed to be doing? And then you see the little orange highlighter thing and say, oh, I can put that there. Okay. But on that level, I was on the ground and I wasn't really angled up looking at the top of the mine. Right. So yeah, I never thought to do that. But yeah, what I did was I climbed the ladder and then I realized that if you edge forward just enough, you can grab the cube and pick it up. And then that was when the whole stealing thing happened, which is actually really important in the game. There's a lot of levels where you need to take things because you've got one large world and then you've got gateways into multiple. So you've got level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But you've got connectors and light beams in the main hub, but no items. So we were both thinking, like, what are we supposed to do? Like, how are we supposed to even do these if it's impossible? Then you find out like those highlight things are actually really important for the jumping, especially. It's like, oh yeah, I can jump up here. Then that means I can steal this connector. Oh, what happens now? Then when we found out you could shoot the laser beams through the purple doors.
Well, you found that. I did never. I was struggling with a very simple one for ages.
Because I found that one out in the Egypt level because they were directly opposite each other. There was a beam and there was a connector, and it's like, oh, can I fire that through there? Yep.
But these are all in relation to the stars, getting the stars. You wouldn't need that if it weren't for the stars. But that's the thing with the stars. I felt that it took a game into a new meta level where it was we've given you these levels and you're used to there are Easter eggs in it that definitely relate to Portal. So I think that they definitely were making this for people with Portal in mind and going, well, you know what Portal is like. You know that unless the game tells you can break out of the room, you can't. So here is your room. But then says, well, but what if it wasn't like that? And what if you could break the game and sneak stuff around? And so it takes that kind of mentality and it basically encourages you to try to break the game as much as possible. Can you steal stuff and use it elsewhere? And that to me was really mind-blowing when I realized what was going on the first time.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. I enjoyed that.
It also allowed them to use the full range of a lot of areas. So even essentially what would be hallways between rooms became vitally important.
Yeah.
And connecting things from one room to another became important. So you had to start expanding your thinking from each individual room to the overall area. And how much can we break the game? Or how far have they taken this? And we were often looking at stuff towards the end going, I think there's a star around here somewhere. How can we get it?
Definitely.
Whereas in the beginning, we were not thinking about that at all. I was just thinking room by room, and I'm just trying to get the sigils.
And maybe this was part of the thinking behind it, was that if they made the stars too easy from the beginning, then you could complete the game essentially just in tandem, and the stars wouldn't really mean anything. So yeah, I think I got my first star in the Egyptian world actually, and then I went back to the Greek one because I didn't even really know that they existed until I think there's one point where you can maybe see them in the Egyptian world easier. They're more on display. There's
there's one
there's
level
one
where
right there.
It's right in the middle of
behind a cage. Yeah. And there's
right in the middle of a puzzle. It's just sitting there and makes you go, what is that?
And
thing?
you've got blue light sources all around you, but to open the cage is a red one. And you're like, well, that's impossible. No, it's not. It's just over there. It's out of the room in another room. But I mean, that's kind of cool. So you can complete the game with no stars, get an ending, which is a decent ending. So you go up to heaven and everything is great. You and Elohim just live there forever. But yeah, if you're more inquisitive, like Shepard was, then you start to look for the stars and climb the tower and question God, essentially.
Can I say, though, some of the stars were a bit ridiculous.
Oh, yeah, they were.
In particular, I think you know the one I'm going to talk about.
There are quite a few.
Which was the hardest one to get?
For me?
Not mentally.
I think I know what you're going to say. Axe and tower. That one?
See, I don't remember any of the names.
Okay, so Justin, you know I've got this hobby which is jumping off of buildings in games. Not in real life, but I must have jumped off that tower about 150 times, and it was so much fun. And there's
So we're talking about the main tower that you're not supposed to climb.
Yeah.
And you were looking down and jumping and jumping.
Yeah, it was. Well, we were just like
every time I looked at your screen, you were jumping again.
Because it's a lot of fun. I mean, I haven't had that much fun jumping off a building since like Prototype. It was good fun. But yeah, so there's a star in the back of that tower, and so we were going up. We were using the time machine thing to create copies of ourselves, jump out the window, get this thing lined up. It was just impossible. But then at the end of the day I was circling the tower. You were watching my broadcast on Steam, and then you're like, whoa, what's that? And I was like, I'm looking at it, and it's like there was a thing we needed to break. It was so simple.
We didn't need to jump off
anything.
anything.
Nothing. We were solving puzzles like 10 times more difficult just to get this one star, whereas it was just break this down, set up the connector that's already there, and then open the door and get the star. It was 5 minutes.
Yeah.
To get the axe and to set it up.
Which just surprised me because you're the one so good about. If there was any I couldn't find because I just had no clue where it was, you explore everything all the time. You're finding all the Easter eggs. Yet we didn't see what is painfully obvious once you know that it's there. The wooden boards that basically we needed with the axe, right? Mm-hmm. So that we didn't need to keep jumping off the tower. You're like, oh, it's right there. It was so obvious. But that's actually not the one I was referring to. The one I was referring to is the one that you kept calling the goat trail that you had to jump. See? That is the one, because that's not about mental. It's not about finding anything. That was about one of the few times where really bad design, I would say. Like, so one of the great things you've mentioned already is that if you can jump somewhere, it gets highlighted with these footprints. And that was a fantastic mechanic because it's one of the things I hate about any time you're in first person and they try to get you to do platforming.
To jump, yeah.
And you randomly found this spot where you could jump, but it's on this tiny little like pole, and then you have to turn around and jump back up onto the mountain. But both of those seem nearly impossible. And it took me about 40 minutes to get that.
I was ready to give up on that because of my whole everything in this game is perfect. That was the only time that it wasn't perfect for me, because you can jump into the back of that level. The whole reason I got there was because there was a box inside that level and I jumped into there, but you're blocked by a gateway, and so you have to die or restart because there's nothing you can do. And then one time when I was trying to jump into that, I got stuck on the pole like a ninja, I'm balancing on this like 4-inch little circle. And then I was like, what if I could jump up there? And then I tried it and I was almost there. But then I stopped because I was thinking, nah, it's too difficult. They would make it easier. Everything happens for a reason in this game, and this is too much trial and error. It's not concrete enough. But eventually I got it, and then after that it's pretty easy. But yeah, that's the only minor niggle that I've got with the whole game, and that's a small one. Yeah.
No, it wasn't a small one at the time.
No, it wasn't.
I was very
it was frustrating.
You had not told me it was possible, if you had not shown me how to find that star, that's another time where I never would have gone through. I would have assumed, no, I had that idea. I tried it a few times. I wouldn't have tried it for 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Just in case it was something.
I maybe didn't take that long for me, but
this is where your dedication proves worthwhile in a game like this, because you find things that I give up on. A lot of times I go, oh, I tried that. Yeah, I probably tried it once, but didn't do it the right way, and then just assumed that I was wrong.
No, that's an easy thing to do, to get caught up in. Like, I've tried it. Even if you try it 5 times, I mean, I'm sure I tried that jump 10 times at least before I got it. And if I just said, okay, after 10 I'm giving up, then yeah, we both wouldn't have got it.
There were some nice Easter eggs as well. I don't know how much we want to talk about that because they just are what they are. But I guess the thing that got me the most was that statue that you started to find pieces for and then wanted to put together. And I never randomly saw any of those pieces, so I don't know how you saw that one. There's a similar thing in the DLC.
Yeah.
But it was much, much more obvious because it was in color. Whereas the statue that you found in the first, like the original game, was like stone, right? So it looked like all the stone that was all around.
Grey stone hidden in grey stone.
But what I found was interesting is that there's at least one sort of Easter egg that still has us stumped, and that is the underwater giant head that I don't think we ever quite figured out what we're supposed to do with that.
Yeah, I have no idea what that was at all.
So even though we have done quite a lot of the game and you've explored a ton of the game, there are still things that we don't know. We don't know everything right, without looking it up.
So maybe we should look that up.
Possibly.
But no, the Easter eggs were cool. I mean, I don't know why, we were talking about this earlier, I don't really know why companies put them in anyway. I mean, I guess they're a bit of fun for them to maybe say hi to their friends. Is that what it is? I don't know why they would put them in. Like,
possibly. I think part of it too is to give people like you that explore everything a kind of reward for exploring everything. Whereas I'm much more the type of player that I want to get through this game because I have a backlog on Steam that's ridiculous. So I have more games to play. So I want to get through it. Unless I'm absolutely loving everything about it. Easter eggs don't do much for me. They're nice when they're there. They're nice when they're easy to find. Like, for example, a game I played on I think it was a PS2 called Blood Rain. There is a part where I just happened to find, essentially you're a vampire and it's Nazi times. And there's a part where I'm breaking open crates and exploring a little bit just to see what I could find. And there's the Ark of the Covenant.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. But it was just there. You know, I didn't have to do what some of the Easter eggs for this one you have to do, where you have to really go looking for them and sometimes do interesting things to find them. And sometimes a bit weird. So once you actually got the statue together, do we want to spoil what happens when the statue actually is put together?
We've already said there were spoilers, but yeah. Again, I don't even know what that's from.
I have no idea. So you were like, I don't even know what this is. I looked at the pieces and it went, I think it's like a colossus or
Yeah.
like like
Some
a
kind
cyclops,
of Greek
right?
monster or something.
Yeah. I was like, I'm pretty sure, like, we're in the Greek area. I'm pretty sure that that's what it's going to be. And sure enough, I think it was a cyclops in the end, right?
Yeah.
But when you put it together, it started to fly in the air and then...
It just launches into the air and then explodes like a firework.
Yeah.
Thanks, just blew up all my hard work. Yeah, that's just weird. And the leprechaun is the same deal in the DLC. That's an even weirder Easter egg because that makes them all the robots dance the river dance. But yeah,
but at the end, because
it does
for a long
nothing.
time it didn't.
Yeah, we put it together and then
we heard
thunder.
We heard thunder and went, oh, that's it.
That's
like,
it. Yeah, like
that was very disappointing. I thought the leprechaun was going to dance. I was waiting for that.
Yeah.
When that didn't happen, I went, oh, it's not really worth it. And then when you told me later, why are all the robots dancing? Maybe it's because of the leprechaun, and now I'm a bit jealous that I didn't put it together, so I went back and
you did it.
Put it together.
So you watched it, yeah?
Yeah.
It's a bit annoying because every time you go back to get a different ending, you got to watch them dance. Like I had to watch them dance about 5 times.
Yeah, and it's about a minute and a half.
Yeah, it's not short.
Which again sounds short until you're stuck there, not being able to do anything.
Yeah.
Otherwise. Yeah. Okay, so let's go on to the DLC then.
Sure.
Road to Gehenna. I think we were both pleased with the original game, the kind of vanilla Talos Principle. But Road to Gehenna we felt a bit disappointed in. Is that valid?
Yeah, definitely.
I'm not going to say it's not worth playing, because we certainly enjoyed quite a lot of it, but there are some issues with it. Let's start with the way they start as well. Much like the first game, you're just dropped into it with no tutorial, but in this case, you better have just played the first game because there is no beginner level in this one. It felt you were picking up right level-wise where the last one left off.
Definitely, because you're given all the tools in one go. There are definitely no tutorials. Well, I mean, and I guess that's why it's DLC, not standalone. So it's they're assuming you need the original game to play this. So if you have the original game and then you went straight to play Road to Gehenna, then that would be a mistake. Definitely play the first game first. But yeah, I did. I mean, I do love the game, but yeah, I felt I was a little bit let down by the DLC.
One thing I will warn you: if you're listening to this and you've bought it but you're a bit confused, it is in the original game. If you're looking at your Steam library, I had the problem where I had it. I installed it and then it disappeared, and it disappeared actually into the game itself. It becomes part of the game itself. So just when you start it, you choose Talos Principle or Road to Gehenna.
Yeah, it's in your menu once you launch the main game.
Yeah, which.
That's the puzzle. That's puzzle in itself.
Yeah, that was a puzzle in itself. So I didn't need that puzzle. That was the worrying puzzle. I felt like, yes, this game did pick up where the last one left off, but one of the things that really disappointed me was it didn't make a lot of use of, again, the time recorder. I wanted a bit more, and they're not much done with that in this one. And the carrying plate,
didn't use it at all.
At all. And so I felt a bit disappointed that if they're trying to say this is the next level, but we're not using everything that you've learned, it felt like something was missing.
And I would have liked to have seen even just one new thing, like one new tool to use.
Yeah, and we didn't get that.
But we got a whole bunch of other things that made me frustrated.
Talk about, I kind of, in very filling in the gaps fashion, I would like to talk about the story quickly. There's not much. It is an interesting concept. We are, from what I understand, a different character.
We're one of the messengers from the original.
Which is where we both got confused in the timeline.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if we go online and read or watch some videos about it, they'll explain it. But
it's not in the game. I really feel like it's not.
That's the thing. It's like, I know we can look those things up. I don't really enjoy doing that.
Like,
I'd rather it was an unfinished mystery in my own mind.
Let me give you an example. No idea when this will go up, but it is October when we're currently recording this. And in the US, Halloween is October. So I tend to watch horror movies. And I was watching Puppet Master, which I really like. And I was looking up the name of one of the puppets that I didn't know, because he's just kind of there right at the beginning, and I think he appears one other movie down the line. I found this kind of wiki entry that gave this whole history of this puppet. And the thing is, it's not in the movies. So where they're getting it from, I don't know. There was a short-lived comic series. There are probably some other things, but where they're getting this history, even the name, even within the wiki entry, they're saying, oh, well, there's no proof that this is the actual name
citation.
of the puppet. Yeah. This is, for me, the perfect example of filling in the gaps, where if enough people write this somewhere, enough people believe this somewhere, it kind of becomes the canon, but it's not really the canon. And this game does very much that, where you could probably find people who have a very good theory, and that becomes the common theory, but we're not really told. So are we doing this before Talos Principle, which is what I thought it was, or are we doing this in the kind of split seconds? Because we don't know in the digital world that we are in if time is really important. This may be just as in Talos Principle, your character is about to become conscious in the real physical world. You have just enough time to try and save these other consciousnesses. I did like the idea of saving the other consciousnesses, or robots, you would say. And they each had a different personality, which was pretty good. Though you were a bit unhappy with the fact that they just took off every time we saved them.
Yeah.
There's no thank you.
No thanks.
But there is no speaking.
Yeah.
Typically in the game. So I didn't have a problem with that.
I chased the first one all the way to the end.
Yeah. I got a message from him. It was like, do not chase him. He doesn't thank you. And you just get a bit lost.
Yeah. But no, the story, I have no idea. Like you said, if it's before, during, at any point during the Talos Principle, like you said, it could be a fraction of a second. Time is probably irrelevant. Or even if it's after we've succeeded in the end of the Talos Principle. There's information that points towards all of those answers.
Yes. Though we did find it somewhat amusing. Some of the personalities were trying to figure out what humanity was and trying to write stories based on what they knew, and they were getting everything wrong constantly.
I loved that. I thought that was really clever.
It was amusing, but at the same time, it did bother me that some of them are meant to be really intelligent, and this is what we've got left of the human race, and they're going to continue on in place of the human race, and they're not very bright.
Well, they don't know how to just climb over a fence to escape. Yeah. That's kind of strange. They can jump off of, 500-meter towers and survive, but they can't climb a fence.
They can't climb a fence, no.
Yeah. But yeah, no, that's true. That's they are a bit dumb, but that's kind of that's part of what I liked about them. They're like almost like kids. There's only like scraps of whatever fiction that they're reading. Obviously, what is it?
It was sort of meant to be Doctor Who mixed with like
Jurassic Park. I don't know. Yeah.
That was it. It was it wasn't Jeff Goldblum, because that's his actual name. It was like Harrison Goldblum. I don't know. They had some sort of combination where it was definitely Jeff Goldblum was meant to be part of the character.
But no, I liked all that kind of stuff. I liked the entry that they had about eating, and like they have these places where you can go to eat food for energy, and but you have to consume that, and then you have to go to the toilet, and they get rid of the waste, and they have the actual waste stations at the place that you eat the food to consume the energy in the first place. I just thought it was kind of funny. And a lot of the fact that all the robots had personalities was it reminded me of Reddit. It was like, and what I really, because
you also get ranked up or down. So
you get ranked up and down.
The quest is to get ranked up so that you can get into archives that you wouldn't normally have.
Yeah, if you get like administrators kind of privileges and stuff. What was kind of interesting that we noticed towards the end was that the people with the lower ranks were actually the most human ones, in a sense, for me anyway. Maybe that's what I took away from it. Well,
you certainly found one of them to be the most trustworthy, because there's a game. There's one thing that I really liked about the terminal. There were a number of games, text-based, and one where you have to decide whether or not you're going to betray.
It was the prisoner's dilemma, yeah.
You found that one guy was definitely trustworthy, so he's the one, if he speaks, we should listen to him. I was kind of,
that was, maybe again, that's me filling in gaps before it's even finished, but I was already thinking that, we're going to have to make a choice of which person to trust. And so there was this guy, because I was always trustworthy in the Prisoner's Dilemma game, and I always kept on getting destroyed by them because they were all backstabbers. But this one guy who had the lowest ranking, and he was because he always trusted them. I was like, okay, this is the guy that we need to talk to. This is the guy, even though his ranking is like level 1, he's the guy that we need to get out of here or something like that. But it never came. You've only got one choice at the end, and that's save the administrator.
No, there are 3. You can save the administrator,
Or
save
not.
yourself, or save
You can't
either
save
one
yourself.
of you.
Did you save yourself? I didn't save myself.
Well, there is a way where you can get the administrator to save you in his stead.
Oh, you're right. I did get that ending.
Yeah.
That's right.
So much like the original Talos, I think there are 3 endings, and in this one there are 3 endings. So the endings in this one are nothing. You're just kind of told what happens.
It's not even.
You get like a quote, right? Like,
it's a quote. The only the other one was the administrator knocks you out of the way of the terminal. He takes over. That's right, and then you go and stand in that place, and then you get beamed up. The rapture at the end, yeah. But yeah, so what the bad stuff then about the DLC, I guess, is my whole this game is flawless thing kind of got crushed.
primarily right at the end. So we had solved the section. You know, we haven't talked about one of the most frustrating things about the Talos Principle in general, and that is the Tetris puzzles.
Oh man, yeah. Well, you're a lot better than those than I am as well. I'm terrible at those.
But they can be very frustrating, and it's like, this is what's stopping me from getting to the next section. That's one of the things I think with this game in general. So the Tetris game, like, I don't know, I've heard them referred to as like tangrams before, and just trying to make them fit was sometimes frustrating. In Road to Gehenna, messing up the prisoner's dilemma prevents you from getting to the next level rank up, which stops you from getting, well, it stopped me anyway at that point from getting an archive that would have helped me progress the story. And there's a lot of these little things that if you don't get them, I mean, I guess you could reload a previous save. That is a nice function to the game, which allows you to go back to just before you got the ending you got and
it allows you
choose
to
a
get
different ending.
all the endings, yeah.
Without having to replay the entire game.
Yeah, that's good.
Nice.
I like that.
What you're referring to before is the end of Road to Gehenna, where we have gotten all the stars that we got that allowed us to see it wasn't to get into the administrator, we had to get into the island place, right? And there were what felt like another bonus.
That was the sigils that we had to get. So we needed the stars to open we had to go on the islands, fly around the islands, then we had to use the stars on the dome, which took us into the world, and then we had to get all the sigils from that world to open the door. Yeah.
That's right. So once we got to the floating island and we got in there, it felt like another bonus 8 levels.
It was, yeah.
And it was a nice concept, but I was running around like crazy going, I don't get what any of these are doing, and it really frustrated me for a long time. These were different for some reason. A lot of times they felt very different. And with all of them, all 8 just looking at you, of course I'm just going to run around until I see which one I think is easiest and give it a try first. But I did find those very frustrating, but part of why we found them frustrating, a couple of them seemed to cheat on the mechanics a little bit, and that is where we are not sure exactly what was going on there. If there is a function that we were unaware of before, but there is a...
No, I checked that. They only did that for that game.
Okay.
Which is really, yeah.
And even
you describe it because that's what you were just about to talk
not
about.
even that. Not even the whole game.
It's not.
Just
It's complete.
like
It's
those
completely
couple
illogical.
levels.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've talked before about connecting the light beams. You connect the source light beam.
You need a clear line of sight.
Yes, and you connect it to a receptor of some kind, in which case, a gate will open or a fan will turn on, something important. Yeah, so oftentimes you have to use a connector to get from a light beam from the source to a receptor, which will open a gate or turn on a fan, something important. And you are not allowed to cross the streams, which I don't think they actually said that ever, but you and I were constantly saying that because we love Ghostbusters. But you can't cross the streams, it doesn't work, and it stops things from happening. But there were 2 levels there where we could stop the beam, not by connecting it to or blocking it with another beam, but by blocking it with what would be a beam through a wall, which made 0 sense to me. And I found very frustrating. It felt like it was cheating on everything it had taught us about the beams thus far.
Yeah, I agree. That was really annoying because the entire game is you can't even beam the light through a vertical fence, so you can't even.
Chicken wire stops everything from working.
Yeah. So there's no holes, but for a laser beam, no, you can't do that. But then now it's saying, okay, but if you connect it and then it doesn't go through, but this invisible, like the trail of where it would be going can now block another beam. That's completely unfair and not explained at any point. We found it out by accident, and it's used a lot in that level. It's almost like rather than giving you a new tool at the end, they gave you a new mechanic which wasn't explained, and that was quite unfair.
But I would say too, even earlier in the game, there was another time where I'd say there were a couple times where maybe again we were doing it not the way it was intended, but we somehow found a way to do it, where I was using a connector and attaching two power sources to it, but it would choose one power source over the other. And that somehow would allow me to get accomplished what I needed to get accomplished. But that, in my head, shouldn't happen. Because in other levels, if you have two sources going to the same connector, they just cancel out.
I saw that. I also saw that on YouTube. It's like, it was the same level, I think. It was the one in the cloud level, yeah?
I think so,
And instead of blue and red, it turned his beam purple, and he could open the blue and the red with the same beam.
That's not what I did, but that would have been fantastic. Yeah.
Well, but again, that's I don't know. I felt a bit not cheating, but just like sloppy almost. I don't know if they intended it to be that way. I guess that they did, because those levels must be impossible to solve without that ghost connector part thing happening. I don't see how you could do it any other way.
I don't know how.
And that's the case where...
But at the same time, I also messed up some very simple concepts there too.
Where before in Talos Principle, I was saying, everything happens for a reason. There's no such thing as a glitch. It's like everything has been programmed, and we're not cheating. We're doing this right. But with the DLC, I felt like we're gaming the system here. We're cheating to get to the answer. Like, we're using glitches to solve these puzzles, and I don't think this is the right way. Again, maybe they're not, but from a couple of the ones that I've double checked on YouTube, absolutely, you need to have that kind of glitch in place.
But see, that's transfer in particular was the one that really bothered me, because it again felt like this one where
transfer worked for me because I did understand that. I got that one. It was the one that you solved the trivia. That blew my mind.
See, that's what I gotta say is that is by far I don't know if I want to say it's my favorite out of all of them, but that was probably my favorite out of the DLC for sure. So there's an earlier level called Ray Test, where it is just deceptively complicated, because it looks simple, but it's not, because everything you do seems to get in the way of something else you're trying to do, and it's only about connectors and light beams, and it was very frustrating. But once I figured it out, I was very happy. And so Ray Trivia was that, but much harder.
Yeah.
And for me, having done Ray Test and then Ray Trivia came up, I just found frustrating. It took me a long time to figure it out. But I sent you a picture.
Your drawing was right.
Yeah, so I very early on, this was the first one of those 8 where I finally felt I was ready for this one, and it didn't feel like something was missing. This was the first time where I felt the game had given me a level earlier, and this was the next step. It had trained me for this level, and I could see the ending. I could see a way to set it up so that it would work. In this case, I was frustrated not by everything. I could see the answer. And for me, that is the best time in a puzzle game. And I was so excited because I knew the answer. I just didn't know how to solve it. I didn't know how to get from step A to C. Like, B was bothering me, right? But I knew there was a way. And then I was struggling for ages. And then annoyingly, you came on and you solved it kind of just before me, I think. So and I was like, oh, why did I send him that picture? Because now you got it. But I had the picture down and I knew what I wanted, and that felt pretty amazing. In fact, I normally didn't draw them out, though a number of times I probably should. It might have made it a bit easier, but I drew it out knowing this is what I need to get to. How do I get to this?
That was so weird though as well. It was a few, when was that? It was like after we'd finished and I was looking at the reviews, because I never read the reviews before I play something, but I read a review on like Kotaku, I think, and the guy who reviewed it had drawn the exact same picture of the exact same level that you'd sent me days before. I think I sent you the screenshot. It's like,
well, it wasn't exact because there's a mistake in that one.
It wasn't the same. It was
which is so weird because as soon as I saw it, I went, that won't work.
Yeah.
But that's how well.
What an amateur!
That's how well I knew that level just worked for me, and so.
But I mean, out of all of the levels that there could have been, a person decided to draw a picture of and put it online. It's the exact same level. That's bizarre. That's such a coincidence. Visually, though, again, sorry, this is maybe jumping back.
No, go right ahead.
Visually, I thought Road to Gehenna was really pretty to look at, especially the aqueduct level.
Yeah, though I don't find it prettier than the regular game. I think just the game in general is really pretty. It looks amazing. It has some really good aesthetics. I mean, it's some of the background stuff is not always the highest graphics or highest resolution, at least not the way I was playing it, but I don't need that. Like for me the aesthetic is much more important than how many pixels they can shove into something. And they've done a very good job with this, but you said that it looks exactly like Serious
it looks
Sam,
a lot
right?
like the screenshots I've seen from Serious Sam, especially the Egypt level. It looks like they've just taken it and cut and pasted it, obviously, and made it look prettier, but it's really, really similar. But there was one thing that you said that really cracked me up when I was like, okay, I was watching your broadcast and I was trying to take you through to get to the portal Easter egg, and then you, okay, jump over here, get in there, okay, now get up there and jump in there, and then you saw the turret and the turret speaking to you, and it's like, oh, that's cute. And then you're just like, wow, look at the sand. The sand is so pretty.
It just looks amazing. Like
it does look really cool. Yeah, it looks brilliant.
Some of the stuff, when you look at it up close, it's just done really well. It looks like what it's supposed to look like, and that really got me. Yeah. So
Overall, obviously, I'm a huge fan of the main game. I would definitely recommend playing the DLC, but it just wasn't as good for me. But no, I honestly thought the original game was pretty much flawless for me. I really, really enjoyed it. Yeah, the DLC, like you said, it didn't really set it up to give you any tutorials. It added a lot of kind of really next level hard puzzles. This kind of sloppy mechanics of the connector cancelling each other out was annoying. But yeah, I mean, even with all that, still a good game, still fun to play. And I'm kind of glad that it wasn't just more of the same as well. So I mean, if it was the same level of difficulty, then we're just like plowing through it. It's okay, but it's just the same. Then we'd be complaining that it was too similar and too easy. What we were going to talk about as well was the crater, and that was so hard.
Yeah, actually.
But looking back, it is actually a really good level. I mean, it's really nice to look at. Again, very pretty level. Very, very complicated. And not one of those like, oh, it's easy, but it's really it looks easy, but it's really hard. It looked difficult. I looked into that hole and was like, nope, I'm not going in there until the very
I think
end.
we were late in the evening, and you sent me a message saying, no, I'm done. I'm looking at that and I'm done. And I went down and looked at it and went, I don't think it's as bad as you think. It looks more extreme than it really is. But
it was a better part of 2 hours to maybe 3 hours to solve that.
That was quite complicated. And then I got stuck on the fan.
Oh, like you solved it and then you...
I was bouncing back and forth between the fans because I accidentally jumped onto the fan instead of putting the big box there. And then I found out later that there's actually a lever, I guess, that I could have somehow hit and stopped myself from... So they had anticipated that because I was a bit frustrated that they hadn't anticipated that.
But what about yourself then? What's your final verdict?
It's definitely worth playing. I found especially some of the star stuff to be really complicated and really a bit beyond what I felt maybe it should be, but I had you there to help me. So much like any puzzle game, it's more fun to have a friend on the same level as opposed to someone who's going to spoil it for you on the internet. Story-wise, I love the concept of the story, but I think that with both stories, that this is a story that's kind of designed for us to fill in the gaps, which is not terrible. It's more bringing up concepts and bringing up discussion points than it is about telling you specifically their viewpoint. And that's not completely bad. Like something that's set up for that. However, it's not quite as enjoyable for me because I like stories with beginning, middle, and end. And we kind of got that, but there's a lot of in between that I felt wasn't really explained.
Like, why were they banished in the first place?
Yeah, in the DLC, yeah.
then,
What did they do wrong?
Yeah, what did they do wrong for a start? And then, so what's unexplained is what did they do wrong in the first place to get banished? And then why did he change his mind?
Yes.
Why did Elohim change his mind and get you to go in there to save them? It doesn't really, that part didn't make any sense for me. It's like, 'cause surely you've made your decision. Why would you feel the need to, unless the whole point was for me to go there and, you know, he was hoping that I would destroy it myself, which is kind of what I did. So maybe that was his plan all along, was I'll pretend that I'm sending you in on a mission to protect and save and keep everything for posterity, but actually I'm secretly hoping that you destroy it all.
I'm not really sure. I appreciate it for what it is, but I also see it for what it is. So it's not if you want a bit of philosophy and interesting concepts, then this is a good story for you. If you're into puzzle games that use lots of these kind of tools and mechanics that we've talked about, then obviously I would recommend that to anyone who likes that kind of game. This is just a pretty solid game, and even the DLC is, outside of a few levels, is pretty solid and worth playing if you like puzzles.
It might actually make sense. Again, this is me filling in the gaps for sure. It might make sense actually. This DLC is taking part as we are destroying the tower in the game, because maybe that's what the two kind of. He realizes that we're coming up the tower. Mm-hmm. He sends this guy in, like, look, this guy's coming. He's going to destroy the whole system, which is what we do. Get those prisoners that I've exiled. Grab as many as you can, because this guy's going to set us all free and this program's going to end. So maybe that's what's happened. Like, maybe it's happening as we are at that final part of the tower. And remember all the graphics, because it's kind of the same graphics in the end, isn't it? It's like the whole...
everything being destroyed.
It's like all the data's being corrupted and stuff.
It's definitely, I mean, that's what we were saying before. Yeah. We didn't know if it was just before or just after. Yeah,
it might make sense that it's happening like
at the same
in tandem. That would explain why it's a different character as well.
Could be. I don't know if that adds anything more to it for me, because I assumed it was either just before or just after. So if it's at the same time, I mean, what if he's wrong and we don't actually solve it? But I will say that it is a game for puzzles. It is a game for exploration, and that's good. And it had a really interesting. The main game has a really interesting final level that I thought it felt like a great culmination of the end. It was kind of a linear puzzle where there's one character trying to stop you and frustrating you, and one character trying to help you, which I sent you a message because I tried it just before you did, saying you need to read these two messages because they'll help explain what's going on, because I thought it was the same one. Why is this guy helping me and also stopping me? I didn't realize there were two of them at the same time. Yeah.
Psychotic robots.
Yeah. Or thinking that they were both trying to help me, but I was confused by the one. And then you quite quickly were like, no, this guy is a jerk. Why is he stopping me from going where I need to go?
There's a guy who did, I think I sent you that. I don't know if you watched it. There's a playthrough. A guy finishes the tower in 4 or 5 minutes without the help of any of the robots. He doesn't even set even set the first one free to help him. He just does the whole tower himself. That's part of the genius of that game for sure. It's like there are so many solutions. Even the final, most difficult puzzle is like, nope, I don't need any of you guys' help. Like, I'm doing this all on my own.
And I kind of suspect that was not actually planned. I think that this guy just found a way around it. And apparently there's a couple different solutions. Because
really?
in the description of that video, he says, yeah, I have seen the other guy's way that he solved it. Mine is a little bit different. We only do one thing the same or something. Wow. And I was like, oh. But that's, for me, I finished the game. I was done. I was happy. I am not going to try to break the game further to see just how far I can take it. But I can understand the appeal of that.
And some people love to do that. That's for sure.
So I would say regular game, definitely. DLC on sale is what I would say. Yeah. But I'm glad I played both of them.
And when it isn't frustrating, it's also quite a relaxing game, I think. The music and the sound effects are quite nice. And as long as the puzzles aren't too difficult, or if you just want to wander around and explore, it's a nice game. But Portal fans too, for sure. That was what drew me to it, because I don't know if it drew me.
They don't feel like enough of this kind of game.
Yeah, for sure. But also, when I first saw this game on Steam, I watched the video for it and I was like, oh, this is just a Portal ripoff. They're just using the companion cube, and it put me against it. It wasn't until one of my friends said, you like Portal, yeah? Yeah. Okay, you should play the Talos Principle. It took me months to eventually download it and buy it, and I'm glad that he recommended it, because it's awesome. But still not as good as Portal. Nothing will be as good as Portal.
I think that's
the benchmark.
that should just be what it says in the description.
Not
on
as good
Steam.
as Portal.
No, I think the portal description should just be like, yeah, nothing is as good as this game.
Yeah.
Except for maybe the second one.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think we're both in agreement. This was fun. This was good. Some clunky bits in the DLC, but otherwise,
If they have another DLC, I'll definitely be on it. I'll buy it.
yeah, I think I probably will too. But mostly again because there's not a lot like this out there.
Gaps filled or more gaps created.